But I thought it would be important just to say something about the process that we'll be using, the learning process. Because you might be wondering, how can we engage with thousands, hundreds then thousands, then maybe even millions of people without an army of costs and supporters and other sorts of things? And the answer is that our core philosophy is to use a process called action learning, which is a very practical form of learning. And one way of defining it is like this. I'll just read a short statement. It works when practical people learn from each other, create their own resources, identify their own problems, and form their own solutions. And the first time I mentioned that phrase in Papua New Guinea with a group that we started at the Department of Personnel Management, someone thought about it, reflected overnight, came back in the next day and said, actually I think it's rather like the way we build a canoe in my village. So a group of us come together, there's no hierarchy, we all have a role to play, we respect each other and we collaborate and we produce something together. So it's a collaborative shared process where individuals learn from each other and find solutions to their own problems. Now you might have noticed in that statement I read, it doesn't mention teachers, it doesn't mention textbooks either. If we are to work with those who have had no chance of going to school, they perhaps can't even read and write, it is possible, absolutely possible, for them to begin the journey to becoming an effective action learner, to becoming the best possible person they can be, the best professional they can be. The process I'm describing is not an academic process. Typically what happens, I spent many years working as an academic in the UK, is that someone at the front, an expert, stands and talks, and the students write down what you say, and then they go and write assignments, and you see your words come back at you. Here, we reverse that process and we say the learner is the expert, even if they don't feel like they're an expert. Actually, as adults, all of us, so if you're 18 plus, we all deep down know what it is that we need to learn in order to be more effective in our jobs, to help in our community and to help the nation or our employer. And our challenge really is to help people to unearth that, to figure out, who am I? What do I know? What do I need to learn next? And this process of action learning works really well when it's balanced. So as people work towards qualifications, and I'll explain that in just a moment, they have always two things in mind. If you can imagine a seesaw, it needs to be balanced. So the individual needs to get something for him or herself. So the question is, what's in this for me? And the answer is, no two people learn the same thing. It's customized. So each learner, we help them to figure out what is it that I need to learn and how am I going to accomplish that. As Paulius mentioned, as a next phase, access to the World Wide Web, and there are now a huge array of resources which are freely available. So we will be working on that as a future phase. But we don't need the World Wide Web to start this. So what is it I need to learn? And there will always be somebody in my village, my community, my company that can help me to learn what I need to learn in order to become more effective. So those often are skills and behaviours. So it could be, I'm a manager, but I've never really learned how to delegate. I've always worked by being at the front. And now I'm a senior manager, I need to learn how to coach others, to encourage others, and to stand back. But it's not something you can learn from a textbook. You have to practice that over a period of time. So there's one illustration. And sometimes I say to a group of experienced people, what does being a professional mean to you? And sometimes they wonder, well, am I really a professional? I say, look, you're an expert, you know about life, you know about your job. So I ask them to think, what does being a professional mean to you? And a small group of people can generate 30 or 40 things. But they're all about active things. They're all about rediscovering the joy and passion for learning. They're all about learning to be curious in the way that young children learn. And I sometimes say, Think about children aged under 6 years of age, so between 2 and 6. How do they learn? When they ask you the question, Daddy or Mummy, why does it go dark at night? How are you going to answer that question and help them to understand the world? And as adults, we stop asking questions, we stop being curious, we stop asking innocent questions, fundamental questions about why we do things the way we do them. And so we want to try to help people to learn what they need to learn by asking questions. And second, as you learn the things that you need to learn, the other side of the seesaw is to find applications, practical applications, that will make a difference in your life, for your family, for your village and community, for your employer, for the nation. So there's nothing passive about this process. It's an active process that says the community, the village, the workplace is the agenda for learning. Actually, the curriculum sits there in the village or in the workplace, in the community. All the things around us that need to be fixed, but not just papered over. By asking key questions, fundamental questions, we can try to dig beneath the surface and find enduring solutions to the problems.